It's time for Recipe of the Day. Generally, in the middle of the week like this, I don't fuss with a marinade, but this one only takes 90 minutes to really penetrate into chicken breasts and chicken thighs. And so if I have a few minutes when I first finish work, I will whip it up and then get the chicken into it and pop it in the fridge for a little while. I also use this recipe. It's a Mexican chicken marinade recipe that's perfect for when you want chicken meat to use in tacos, burrito bowls, that kind of thing. I use this marinade quite often if I'm doing like a meal prep kind of thing and doing a whole bunch of chicken to then cook up and have on hand. So this is one of the marinades that you've probably heard me talk about before, not this particular recipe, but this style where it's actually kind of a hybrid between a marinade and a brine. So it has the typical marinade ingredients. So you usually have something acidic and some other liquid, and then usually something that's like oil of some kind, because those are the different ways that the flavor is carried. But this one also has salt like a brine does, and that really helps get the marinade right into the meat. Salt water is absorbed into meat proteins better than regular water. So that's what's happening here. And then for this marinade, like so many of my others that have this like brine technique, you're actually pureeing fresh ingredients like onions and garlic, jalapenos, cilantro. You're pureeing them right into the liquid. So it's almost like you're making a vegetable juice of the onions, garlic, and all of that. And then the salt is added to that. And then that flavor bomb is what is getting pulled into the chicken meat. It is ridiculous how much of the flavor gets into the chicken. If you try this one time, you're going to be doing it all the time, I promise. Okay, so this recipe makes enough for 3 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken breasts or thighs, and you can also use it on a whole chicken. If you're doing it for the chicken pieces, you're going 90 minutes maximum, and if you're doing it for whole chicken, it's 6 hours at the most. And that's just because of the salt in there. It's going to make the meat too salty if you leave it longer. So if you want to leave it really long, like you want to do the overnight kind of marinade, I recommend not putting the salt in and then treating it like a normal marinade. So much good flavor still. And then you're just going to take the chicken out of the marinade, pat it dry, and season it with salt before you cook it if you're doing that. Similarly, if you want to freeze this, I do not recommend that you freeze the chicken in this marinade. Instead, marinate it for the amount of time that I stated, then take the chicken out of the marinade, or like pour the marinade out of the bag, and then freeze the chicken without the marinade in it. And you're just going to get less like crazy texture change to the chicken, and it won't be too salty if you do that. Okay, so what you're going to do is get out a blender or a food processor. You want a strong blender because we're going to be pureeing some chunky ingredients. If your blender is not like super powerful, you can chop things up before you add it to there, okay? So into your blender or food processor, you are putting 2 cups of water, 2 tablespoons of kosher salt, 2 tablespoons of cooking oil. That could be olive oil or whatever you like to use. And then a medium onion that you've peeled, 1 jalapeno with the stem removed, or you can also take the seeds out if you don't want it very spicy. Up to you if you leave the seeds in or not, but take the stem out because your blender is going to have trouble with that harder stem. Then 4 cloves of peeled garlic, and you're also adding a lime. Now, not the whole lime. You're going to zest and juice the lime and add both the zest and the juice. And then a 1/2 cup of fresh cilantro. You could put the leaves and the stems in there. And then some seasonings. 2 teaspoons of chili powder, 2 teaspoons of dried oregano leaves, a teaspoon of smoked paprika, and 1/2 teaspoon of cumin. And then you just blend that all up until it's like a puree. A pulpy puree, like the texture of like orange juice with extra pulp. You know what I mean? Because that onion and garlic and all of that. And then it's of course going to be green, not orange. Okay, so you have that. Then you just add the chicken. Now my blender works in such a way that I can add the chicken directly to it. I'm not turning the blender on. I'm not trying to puree that chicken, but just as a container to have the chicken in. And then, like I said, 3 pounds of chicken can go in there easily. Really, you can put as much as you want as long as it's fully submerged. And I guess I can say if you end up in a situation where you had more chicken than you realized and it's not fully submerged, you can make more of the brine mixture. So just 1 cup of water and 1 tablespoon of the kosher salt. Mix that together until the salt is dissolved. And then you can pour that in and mix it up with the other marinade that you've already made until the chicken is fully submerged. If it's just a cup or so like that, you don't need to add extra of the other ingredients. And that's it. You just marinate that in the fridge. Like I said, 90 minutes for chicken thighs and chicken breasts. And then take the chicken out, discard the marinade, pat it dry. You do not season that chicken with salt before cooking it because it does have the salt from the marinade. You could do like a little bit, but you just want to be careful. And then I will say there is oil in that marinade, but it doesn't really work to like help with browning or prevent sticking. There wasn't enough of that. It was really there as an extra conduit for the flavors. So if you're going to do something like grilling this or air frying it or anything where you want that brown edge or where it could stick to the pan, then you want to use a little bit of oil just like you normally would. Okay, I will put the link to this recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there. Everything there is arranged by date, so it's helpful to know that today is August 20th of 2025. And I want to remind you that in this day and age with all the AI fake recipes out there, who knows who is making these, testing these, all of that, you want to make sure you're getting good recipes. Go and look on my websites first. Bookmark cookthestory.com and thecookful.com, and you can search there for the recipes you want. Or the other thing you can do is to go on Google and search for my name, Christine Pittman, Pittman, followed by whatever recipe you're trying to make. If you want to make meatballs, search for Christine Pittman meatballs, and you will see all of my meatball recipes right there. It is a great strategy for basically searching both of my sites at the same time. And then you will always know that the recipes you found are made by me, tested by me, and designed to be delicious and convenient too. I'm Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.